يتدبرون القرآن
ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهديه الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Surah An-Nisa, the fourth surah in the Quran according to the order of the surahs, the chapters of the Quran. Surah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in Al-Madinah with rulings, regulations, halal and haram, permissible and non-permissible, mainly with regards to relationships, since the human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them in a complex societies usually, and this is part of the purpose of our life. That the purpose of our life is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and the comprehensive meaning of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means there are certain rights to be observed, the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Him to be worshipped alone, and we would find it clearly throughout the surah and throughout the whole entire Quran, and the rights of the human beings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His wisdom, because He's the most wise subhanahu wa ta'ala, created us and created people that live with us, interact with us. So this is all part of the religion, part of the purpose of our life, and we will be asked about our relationships and our speech and actions, everything, even the smile that we would have on our face. This is, as the Prophet ﷺ said, this is a charity if you do that to your Muslim brother. So these are all acts of worship. This is the deen of Islam. It's comprehensive, so comprehensive that it encompasses everything in our life. And part of this is in any society, those who are weak and sometimes they are oppressed. And certain factions of societies throughout history of mankind, they have been oppressed from one generation to the other, and some of them are still oppressed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just. So He revealed to the Prophet ﷺ rulings with regard to those who are weak and oppressed. For example, women throughout societies and nations, women have been oppressed throughout the history of mankind, to the extent of which that they did not consider the women, sometimes in medieval times, they did not consider women to have a soul in the same level as the soul of a man. And they degraded the level of the women so much that she is nothing but a servant to the men. And that's why there's revolutions and rights of women, and people always talk about the rights of women in societies and so on. Why? Because they lack this. Why? Because human beings, out of their transgression and of their ignorance, the fittest or the strongest one physically, usually they mandate what the rights of others, the survival of the fittest. This is what human beings, not just animals, but human beings, they tend to be like this. And if there is no regulations, strong regulations to be observed in the society, usually those who have the means, those who are strong physically, they would oppress those who are weak. Although sometimes oppression takes different forms, and sometimes people might think they're not being oppressed, and in reality they are oppressed. They get used to being oppressed. So how will people then know the rights and how to live an honorable and a dignified life, to be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, since we get to know from the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us all from one soul, and created from that one soul Adam alayhi salam, his wife Eve, and that every single human being, they will be held accountable for their actions in the Day of Judgment. So knowing this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the rights of every single human being, whether they are physically weak or physically strong, whatever there is, they have rights to be observed, and this is part of the worship. That's why those who are physically powerful, they have to observe the rights of those who are weak. Based on what? Based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So this is what we need to follow, and we have to have the good expectations that the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most just and the most mercy also, and it fits and serves the rights and the goals that the Sharia, that the Deen of Islam trying to implement in the societies, as we would see inshallah ta'ala. So we discuss inshallah ta'ala in this episode verses of Surah An-Nisa number 2 and 3 and 4 that talks about those who are weak physically in the society and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected their rights, starting with the orphans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the verse number 2 in Surah An-Nisa, وَآتُوا الْيَتَامَى أَمْوَالَهُمْ وَلَا تَتَبَدَّلُوا الْخَبِيثَ بِالطَّيِّبِ وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَى أَمْوَالِكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ حُوبًا كَبِيرًا, which means, and give to the orphans their properties, and do not substitute the defective of your own for the good of theirs, and do not consume their properties into your own. Indeed, there is ever a great sin. So after the first verse that had the call from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind to fear Allah, to be dutiful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to remind them that He's the one that created them from one soul, and He created from it its mate, and dispersed from them both many men and women. This is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a great reason. So you have to observe this, and you have to witness that you need to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout these relationships and the kin and kith, and we talked about that last time, and that this is part of the religion, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching us. He's observing everything that we do, so we should fear Him and be dutiful to Him. Then comes this order and this ruling, وَآتُوا الْيَتَامَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ. Atu means give, and it's more of a powerful meaning than just give. You give them with all means of goodness, because this is something that is their rights. You give them their wealth. Who? The yatama, the orphans. And al-yatama, or the yatim, the orphan, is someone that is linguistically means the one that is alone. And that's what the orphans are. Orphans in the religion means, according to the Deen of Islam, is the one that lost his father before reaching the age of puberty. Before reaching the age of puberty. As we know, the age of puberty is the age when the person is responsible for their actions. If they die after the age of puberty, then they will either enter Jannah or the hellfire. They are responsible for their actions. They will be reckoned and questioned about their affairs and so on. Before the age of puberty, it's an age where the human being is to be prepared to carry this heavy responsibility. So al-yatim, or the orphan, is the one that was young before the age of puberty, and he lost his father, not the mother, lost the father. This is religiously what the yatim is, the definition. It doesn't mean that the one that lost his mother is in no need of being protected and well taken care of and so on. This is of course definitely something that is needed, but when it comes to physical needs, usually the one that loses his father, that means he loses his means of support physically, financially, and discipline-wise, and so on and so forth. So the yatim, or the orphan, is given so much attention in the Deen of Islam. Why? Because, again, at times where people are ignorant, or they don't follow rules and regulations, the strong among them will abuse the weak among them. They might take the rights of the orphans, and nobody will hold them accountable for this. So that's why the rulings come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect the rights of the orphans. And this one order, وَآتُوا الْيَتَامَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ, give them their money. A person, his father passes away, and they have money, and they inherit the money from their parents. While they are still young, before the age of puberty, they cannot have full access to this wealth. Why? Because they don't have the capacity mentally, they don't have this capacity to be responsible, so they might foolishly spend all of their wealth. And they would even, sometimes a child might find it amusing, for example, to burn his wealth, right? This is, that's why they're not having this full access to their wealth. So they have to have a guardian over them. And this guardian has responsibilities, and this is what is the verse is referring to. Those who are adults, and they're responsible for orphans, whether it's the mother towards her child, or the uncle, or the grandfather, whoever, and it's usually the one that has a relationship close to the orphan and he's responsible for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding them and warning them that they have a responsibility, that the wealth that is inherited and it belongs to the orphan, it's their money, it's their wealth. And you should give them their money, but when they reach the age of puberty, as it would be clear in the verses to come. Once they reach the age of puberty, then you test them, as it will come in the verses, and you give them their wealth. You give them their money. You don't even tell them to come and take your money. See the word wa'atu, as the ulama, they say that out of the goodness that you go and you give them their wealth. You don't just tell them come and you take your wealth. No, you even give it to them in such a good way. وَآتُوا الْيَتَامَى أَمْوَالَهُمْ أَمْوَالَهُم, their wealth, and whatever the wealth is, not necessarily gold and silver, but anything. And then the warning, وَلَا تَتَبَدَّلُوا الْخَبِيثَ بِالطَّيِّبِ, do not exchange or do not substitute the defective with what is good. What does that mean? The one that is in charge, the guardian of the orphan, he has his own wealth, and now he's responsible for the wealth of the orphan, whether it's his nephew or whatever there is. So this wealth, not necessarily to be cash, for example, it's animals. So goat or sheep or whatever. So in the times of Jahiliyyah, this verse was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, maybe the guardian would have a healthy animal, and the animals of the orphan, there is some of them that are weak, or vice versa. So this person will exchange, will take the healthy from the animals of the orphan, since the orphan is small, is not paying attention to his wealth, and he would substitute that what is weak to put it with the orphans, or the money of the orphan, since he is responsible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning them. This is one form of doing so. Or earning or taking the wealth of the orphan without the right to do so, and that's of course haram, it's a sinful act. So this is, both meanings are correct. وَلَا تَتَبَدَّلُوا الْخَبِيثَ بِالطَّيِّبِ, do not substitute the defective of your own for the good of theirs, meaning the orphans, while you are the guardian of the orphan. To be honest and truthful, and to be kind towards them, that you would deal with the money that you have been entrusted to take care of, like exactly you would take care of your own wealth. وَلَا تَتَبَدَّلُوا الْخَبِيثَ بِالطَّيِّبِ, and it also shows there is khabith and there is tayyib. There is good and there is defective. There is good and there is evil. Haram is evil, and what is permissible is good. And to cheat, definitely this is khabith, this is evil, and we are ordered to stay away from what is khabith. And it also shows that whatever something is haram is evil, is impure, is not good. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the rulings from Him is not just to test us and to make it difficult for us, of course not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbidding for us all that is evil. Anything that is haram is evil. You might see the immediate ratification of something to be good for you, but the outcome of it is so evil. That person that is a guardian over an orphan, if he takes what is good from the wealth of the orphan without the right for him to do that, if he exchange, again as we said, and he take what is good and he put instead what is weak, he would see for that, for himself, that he's doing good for his own wealth. He's doing good for his own children, right? But why would people then do this when it's clearly evil? When you even hear it from me now, this is such an evil act. But why people would do that? Because they think that they're doing benefit to themselves. But this is evil because of the outcome of it, because these other human beings, they have rights to be observed. And when people are so selfish and greedy, they don't really care about others, they only care about their own selves. This is the greed that humanity they live with, unless they have the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You would find that even in many cases, when people deal with usury, for example, right? The rich, they don't care about the masses, they only care about their own wealth. It's the nature of businesses and all kinds of things. When a person is in a case where he's selling something, he doesn't really care about his customers. The only care that he cares about is, if he cares, is for them to come back again. It's for the benefit of his own business. This is something that the religion of Islam takes us to a higher level than this. You know, when you go to a store or a company and they have customer service and they're treating you in a nice way, MashaAllah, this is a great thing. But is this is really done truthfully, sincerely, for your benefit, or it's only claims? Is it for your own benefit or for the benefit of the business itself? For you to come back again to them? For you as a customer, really, it doesn't really matter as long as they're treating you nice. But maybe they would deceive you. They would lie. The heart is not fully, purely, sincerely dealing with you as a human being, as someone as in need. In the religion of Islam, we're ordered to be nice, not for us to make more profits, not for us not to lose our customers. If you're a business owner, you're ordered to be nice, period, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you care for them the same way that you care for your own self. Which is better? Which would bring even more goodness, not just to yourself, but to the whole society. So you would sell something to someone and you would clearly explain to them the defects in it and the good things of it and so on, sincerely, as if you are yourself purchasing this. So this level of honesty and truthfulness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the believers to be in that level. And for people to think that that would make them lose, no, it's the total opposite. It would make you constantly gain and win. Why? Because we do things for the sake of Allah. So in this relationship between the orphans and the guardians, those who are in charge of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning them not to deceive and not to exchange or substitute the defective in your wealth for what is good and strong of theirs. And more, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَى أَمْوَالِكُمْ, and do not consume their properties into your own. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا, وَلَا do not, تَأْكُلُوا literally means do not eat. Right? Al-akl is to eat. So لَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ, do not eat their wealth. The word eat is mentioned here. Why? Because this is usually the main thing that people do with wealth. The most important thing for people when it comes to wealth is to save their life, to keep them satisfied, to eat. And it also comes with the meaning of consuming someone's wealth. So وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا, and also have this negative connotation to it when somebody would take the wealth of others without the right to do that. Like someone has so much greed that he is consuming others without the right to do that. So the believers are forbidden not to consume وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ, their wealth, the wealth of the orphans, إِلَى أَمْوَالِكُمْ, to claim it for yourself. Whether to take it like that, to steal it, without nobody knows what you're doing because you're the one that is a guardian over their wealth, or to do that substitute and to exchange it and to make it mixed with your wealth without the right for you to do so. إِنَّهُ كَانَ حُوبًا كَبِيرًا, this is a great sin. We'll discuss that inshallah ta'ala in the next verses after the break, so stay with us inshallah.
يتدبرون القرآن.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Still with the second verse of Surah An-Nisa and the ruling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordering the believers to observe, to protect the rights of those who are physically weak in the society. And this is how the beauty of the deen of Islam, to observe the rights of everyone and to love for your brother what you love for yourself. This is the deen of Islam, and that the ubudiyyah, the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is not just a personal relationship or a personal ibadah, it's the whole entire life. So the rulings with regards to the orphans, as we heard in the verse, that to give them their wealth when they reach the age of puberty, and not to substitute the defective of your wealth into and to take the goodness from them, and not to consume their wealth, not to take their money without the right to do that. And again, this is mainly to the guardians for the money of the orphans. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ending the verse, second verse, إِنَّهُ كَانَ حُوبًا كَبِيرًا. This is a major sin. Huban is a sin, kabiran, big. This is a huge sin. This is a major sin, to consume, to take the wealth of the orphan without the right to do that. Why? Because they are weak. They don't have anyone to defend their rights if you are the guardian over them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning them that this is a major, major sin. to take without the right to do that from the wealth of the orphan because they cannot defend themselves. And this is also something that we would see throughout the surah, and we need to ponder over this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the rights of those who cannot sometimes defend themselves physically, like the rights of a child, for example. You would find the rights of a child, since the child, when he or she are born, they cannot defend themselves. And to protect their rights, you would find rulings in the deen of Islam that goes beyond just the child when it's born. Goes before that, way before that. Marriage itself. And we talked about that before. It is the right of the child, one of the rights of the child is to have a father and a mother. And that's why we are ordered to lower our gaze, to protect our chastity, forbidding zina, fornication. For what reason? Many reasons, but one of which, so that when there's a child, that child is protected. They have the rights, so they're not orphans. Orphan is the one that lost his father died. This is in a normal relationship. But how many children nowadays, they don't have a father because they don't know their father. So they are, in reality, they are orphans when they do not know their fathers, in the sense that they lost the father figure. There's nobody to support them emotionally, and so on and so forth. And you would find the orders of Allah to prevent the human beings and societies from falling into this trap. When they allow the open relationships between men and women outside the fold of marriage, this is what happens. You would find over 40% in some countries of children that are born without knowing their fathers, out of wedlock, they not marriage and so on. So the deen of Islam protects your right as a human being. When you are a child, when you're grown up, when you are a man or a woman, it doesn't matter, and it's in the most perfect way. And we have to witness this. And even if we don't know the wisdom behind things, it is enough for us to know that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High. And definitely it's what is best for us. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this is a major sin, to take from the wealth of the orphans without the right to do that, or to even to do the slightest means of cheating and deceiving when it comes to exchange. You might not take physical money from them, but you can substitute something that is not as perfect as it was by something else. This is still a major sin as it's explained clearly in the verse. Then the next verse, number 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا فَوَاحِدَةً أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ ذَلِكَ أَدْنَى أَلَّا تَعُولُوا. Which means, and if you fear that you would not deal justly with the orphans, then marry those that please you of women, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only one or those your right hand possesses. That is more suitable, that you may not incline to injustice. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. This is a specific case with regards to the orphans that are girls. وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ أَلَّا تُقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. If you fear that you would not deal justly with them. This has a reason why it was revealed, as Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, and others, that at times of jahiliyyah, of ignorance, when a man, he is responsible for or a guardian over an orphan, and the orphan is a girl and she grew up, and whether he likes her and he wants to get married to her, so since he is in charge of her, he would deal with her in an unjust way. Not give her her mahr, for example, the dowry money, not protecting her rights because he's in charge of her. So he would deal with her in an unjust way. Or the opposite. He does not like her, he doesn't want to marry her, but she has wealth and he's the guardian. So he doesn't want the wealth to go to someone else. So he would abuse that right that he is the guardian. So he would marry her just for the sake of her money. And he would abuse her as a result of that, because he won't be able to fulfill his rights as a husband. He just married her for her wealth. And he is the guardian, and he would feel that he would lose that money if she marries someone else, because she would ask for her wealth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protecting the orphans, that if she is a girl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordering the guardians that if you fear that you might not be just to your orphan, meaning the girl that when she grew up and so on, and you want to marry her, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Then there are a lot of women, else women for you to marry, not necessarily that one particular one. Why? Because you will be asked. You will be asked whether you are just towards people or not. So this orphan girl that you were a guardian over and you're protecting her rights and her wealth and so on, if it's permissible, if it's the relationship is permissible when it comes to the muharramat from the women and so on, if it's permissible to marry, then it's okay, it's permissible, but with the condition that the rights are observed. The rights are observed and she is given her rights fully, and it's not with the intention that a person would marry her for her wealth and so on. So that's why it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is opening the ways for such people that go ahead and marry other women, so that you don't abuse those who are you are guardian over. And that's also one of the benefits that we learn from the verses. The ulama, they say, when something is forbidden, if the scholar, for example, is showing the ruling, if he has the means to give alternatives that is halal to the questioner, this is such a great thing. But he doesn't have to, right? If somebody come and ask about a ruling, say for example he's dealing with riba, with usury, so the scholar will tell him this is not permissible, it's not permissible to deal with usury, and that's good enough. But if he can open alternatives for the questioner, then instead of using your money in this, you can use it in such and such and so on, and he give him alternatives that are halal, this is out of his goodness, out of his generosity when it comes to matters of knowledge. But what if the questioner does not get an alternative from the scholar? Should he then fall into the haram, what is not permissible as a result of not having alternatives? The answer, of course, is not. And the alternative is to go to the hellfire? No, this is not an alternative. The alternative has to be permissible. So the ayah is giving the alternative for those who might fear not to deal with the orphans that are under them, under their authority, to deal with them in a just way. If it comes to matters of marriage, فَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ, get married to مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ, what you are satisfied, or those who please you from women. مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ, 2 or 3 or 4. First, the word مَا طَابَ لَكُم, what pleases you. It shows that when a person wants to get married, he should not force himself to get married to someone that is not pleasing to them. Why? Because marriage is intended to stay forever while there are life on the face of earth. So out of the way to continue for the relationship to be good and healthy, and people to observe the rights of others, to make it easy for oneself, get married to someone that is pleasing for you. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith for the men to look to look at the woman that he wants to get married to. Why? So that this is more likely for them to have good living together, not to be forced to marry someone that they don't want or they don't like. So al-qabul, or the acceptance, has to be there. Not in a sinful way like others would do, that they would have to have a relationship before marriage. They get to know each other and they get to go out together and they would commit sins before they would get married. This is not permissible. But knowing the other side very well, without having to see them first, but getting to know them, their families, their manners, from the people that know them and so on, and then to get to see them and to talk with them, this is all permissible with the right guidelines, with the presence of a mahram and so on. So that when the marriage happens, it happens in a good way, in a healthy way, that it will continue to be successful. So this is also another benefit. مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ, what you are pleased with from women. And also the women are not to be forced to marry someone that they don't want to marry, and so on. مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ, 2 of them or 3 or 4. This is something that is permissible in the deen of Islam, for the man to marry 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but 4 is the maximum. More than that is not permissible. When this verse was revealed, some of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they had more than 4 wives, 9, 5, 6, whatever. Once this verse was revealed, they were given the choice to only choose 4 from among them and divorce the rest, because it's not permissible. And it continued to be the case through among the Muslims that it's not permissible for a man to have four wives at the same, more than four wives at the same time. Till now, and again it depends where you are, but some countries, some Muslims, and I've witnessed that in some of the countries that I visited, you would find Muslims and they're making salah and so on. But some of them, because of their tribal understanding and so on and so forth, they have many, many wives. And they don't see that this is something that is haram. This is forbidden. And if you see something like this, you should advise the people. It's haram for a Muslim man to get married more than four wives. And in some places in Africa and so on, people would do this. It's not permissible to have more than four wives. Only four is the maximum, but with a condition as it's mentioned in the verse. If people would take this as a negative thing and they say, see how in the religion of Islam, a man has he can get married to more than one when this is difficult, how can a woman accept such a thing, and with the jealousy and so on. This is the rulings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And when a Muslim is asked why men in your religion they get married to, they can have more than one wife, our answer should be, because this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because we submit ourselves to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is enough for us as Muslims. Can we say more? Yes, sure. You can talk about the wisdom behind it? No, yes, sure. But this is not why. It's not something that people will get together and they decide for themselves what is good and what is not good. No, we already apply this in our life as a permissible thing just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that. We talk about the wisdom behind it, sure, no problem. But it doesn't change anything in the ruling of the deen of Islam. This is deen, this is religion. So the benefit of this outcome and outweighs the losses. And again, we're living in societies, complex societies. And when we understand the goals of the deen and the rulings of the deen of Islam, we would understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it permissible for the men to marry more than one up to four at the same time, with the condition that he's just to all of them. The wisdom behind this is the goals of the deen of Islam. People tend again to be greedy, and human beings tend to be greedy and going after their own benefits, and that's it, without looking ahead. But when you look into the reality of things, it's forbidden for a Muslim man and woman to have relations outside the boundaries of marriage. And it's a fact, and again this is not necessarily the reason, but it's a fact of life, that in many cases women are more than men. So what happens if every man would get only married to one woman, and then there are extra women in the society? What are they supposed to do? To fulfill their desires and to have the normal thing that every man and woman would tend to have in this life, because they're inclined towards the opposite. What should they do? Should they then commit sins? Should they have other relationship, other outside the fold of marriage, like it is the case in many parts of the world? This is not permissible in the religion of Islam. And you see the benefits of marriage. Households are being established. Worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. More children to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. More people to be protected, their chastity and rights to be observed. It's not relationships like people have with one another. There's no responsibilities to it. No, this is responsibilities. Household to be spent on, and children to be raised, and so on and so forth. So there's great benefit, and of course it is recognized the jealousy or the feeling that a wife would have if her husband has another wife other than her. Definitely this is considered and it's a valid feeling, but the benefits of that outcomes this feeling, and that's why life has so much tests in it. And if that wife would endure patience, seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as her husband is just, she get rewarded for this. Some people, they live their life without an eye, without a leg, without a hand. So life have certain calamities in it and tests that we go through, and we endure patience for the better benefit and the overall benefit. And the one that would agree to be a second wife or a third wife, why would she if she can be the only wife? That means there's a need in the society. Why? To protect the society, to keep the society chaste and virtue, and applying the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's needed, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it permissible. It's not mandatory, but it's permissible, And this is something that we see clearly in this verse and others. We continue, inshallah ta'ala, after the break, so stay with us.
يتدبرون القرآن
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. With verse number 3 in Surah An-Nisa, and the ruling in this verse to be just to the orphans, and the specific case of the orphan is a girl, and the guardian of the orphan that is a girl, if he wanted to marry her, if it's permissible for him to marry her, to be just to her, and not just to do that so that he would use her money or whatever. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the men to be just and to do what is right, and giving the alternatives. There are other women to get married, and it's permissible to have 2 or 3 or 4 wives, but not more than that. فإن خفتم ألا تعدلوا, and this is the condition. فإن خفتم ألا تعدلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم, which means, but if you fear that you will not be just to the wives, if you have more than one wife, then marry only one, or those your right hand possesses. So this is a very important condition. Why? Because as the Prophet ﷺ explained in the authentic hadith, that if a man marries more than one wife, and he is preferring one over the other, he's not being just to all of them, because if he buys one thing here, he has to buy the other, the same to the other, and so on. He has to be just to all of them when it comes to spending the time and wealth and so on. And if he's not, he comes in the Day of Judgment with one shoulder higher than the other, as a way that he is being exposed in the Day of Judgment. It's a sinful act that he was not just to all of his wives. فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ, so if a person has the fear that he might not be just to his wives, then فَوَاحِدَةً, then he should get married to only one. أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ, or what your right hand possesses. And this is something that is permissible in the Deen of Islam with the conditions of it. It's not something to be sought for a person to have, or such a virtuous thing in the Deen of Islam, but it's a reality of a society, especially with the rulings of the war. If things like that permits, so then it's permissible for them. أو ما ملكت أيمانكم, or if your right hand possess. ذلك أدنى ألا تعولوا, as the ayah says, that is more suitable that you may not incline to injustice. تعولوا comes into the meaning of increase. So the transgression that a person might fall in, which is forbidden, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warning the believers from falling into means of injustices. If they have more than one wife and they're not being just, so then get married to one, because this is for you, for in that case would be more justified. And the same thing with taking care of the orphans and so on, so that protecting oneself from the evil within our own selves, come these rulings to protect us from transgressing the limits. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after that in verse number 4 says, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا, which means, and give the women upon marriage their bridal gifts graciously, but if they give up willingly to you anything of it, then take it in satisfaction and ease. So this is another ruling. وَآتُوا النِّسَاء, give the women, and the surah is named An-Nisa, the women, because there are many rulings that is relating to women. Give the women صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلًا. صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ means their mahr. Saduqa is the mahr, which is something to be done when a person wants to get married, that the woman, she has the right to receive mahr from the husband. And the mahr, which they sometimes translate it as the bridal money or bride, this is not necessarily the best translation, because it has certain connotations to it in certain cultures, but this is basically something physical, wealth to be given to the woman, not to the guardian of the woman, like some cultures would do. And it's not permissible for the guardian of the woman or her father to make a condition that he receive a certain amount of money, or the guardian of the orphan. If the orphan grows up and she's about to get married, it is not permissible for the guardian of the orphan to stipulate that he would get a portion of something. This is not permissible, of course. So this is only to the woman. She has the right to have this money from the husband or whatever means of wealth. And this has rulings in the Deen of Islam. She should get whatever she is suitable for her. It's different from one society to the other, from one level of people to the other. And the orphan, that is a woman that was an orphan, she has the right like any other woman. It's not because she's an orphan so she would get less. And that's something that has to be observed. So if the woman in their society is getting a certain amount of wealth as mahr, then she should also receive the same amount. And that's why it says nihla, meaning out of your graciousness. It's not something that you would give it, you feel like you're being forced in a way that you hate so much to give it and you're not satisfied. No, this is something that you would give with graciousness, with goodness, and that's the rights of the wife. She should not feel that the husband bestowed some favor upon her and he would humiliate her as a result of that. No, this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High, He made this as the right of the woman in general. And here again, this is with regards to the orphans, she has to make sure that this is something observed to her. So to give it willingly, to give it in a good way, graciously, to the women if you intend to marry them. If marriage happens without the mahr, then it is to be corrected and to be given. And this can be, part of it is given upfront and part of it to be given or to be dealt with as a loan. And once if the husband, for example, dies or divorced, then the woman is entitled for this money. It has to be given to her. But it doesn't mean that they have to wait till he dies or divorced. This is her money, and it becomes a loan and a debt on the husband that he has to give this wealth to his wife. And people are of two extremes when it comes to the mahr. Some people, they go extreme into making it so difficult for the husband and for men to get married because they ask of so much money out of the feel that they're doing what is best for the women in their family, whether it's the daughter or the orphan, if he's a guardian or whatever there is. The other extreme is when people don't care too much about this money, the mahr. So they would ask for something little, and although the man can give more. So the middle course is what is meant here. And there's nothing wrong with the husband to give more than, and he would feel that this is something that he gave for the sake of Allah for his wife. Not something minimum. It depends on how the person is rich and poor and so on. But the marriage contract has to be corrected if it happened without the stipulation of the mahr. So, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً, out of the goodness of yourself. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيًّا. Which means if the women, if they give up willingly, and that's what the meaning of the ayah, فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا. فَإِن طِبْنَ, she was satisfied. There's nothing wrong with that. She is willingly giving up some of it, some of her mahr, to you, anything of it, then take it in satisfaction and ease. But she has to have it first. It is not for her to say, I don't want my mahr, or I don't want a part of it. It's to be given to her, and then if she give back some of it without being coerced to do that, or being even saying it in an indirect way that the husband would like for him to get back some of his money, this is not permissible for him to do that whatsoever. But if it's done out of her willingness, she is doing that out of her own will, without the fear of anything, without the fear that maybe if she doesn't, then the husband won't treat her nice. This is definitely makes it a sin for the husband. And that's why we have to be careful, because the ayah, the verse is teaching us something very, very important. And that is, even if you're given a gift, if the gift is given as a result of a person being shy and he feels that he has to give a gift, it's not permissible for you to accept it. Anything that a person would get, this is part of getting something without the right to do so. So a person sometimes fall into this by saying, for example, I like your watch, right? So the person, out of being shy, Some people might say, okay, you can have it, right? This is not permissible to take it then. Why? Because you made him fall into this trap of being shy, so he would say such a thing. So a person has to be away from this, and one of which is matters of mahr. So the condition, or what is mentioned here in the verse, it's not something that the husband would say something about it, or would intend or hint to his wife of anything of that nature. This is something that is not permissible whatsoever. But if it's out of the goodness of her and she's willingly wants to give something, it's like anything of wealth that you have, you own it, and if you want to give something of it, it's up to you. فَكُلُوا هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا, then consume it, take it, هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا, with satisfaction and ease. There's no harm in this case, because the relationship is not built on financial ground, it's built on goodness from one another and means of mercy towards one another, and this is the foundation of any marriage. So when people look into the mahr and the conditions that are mentioned and the rules and regulations, this is not to make it a dry relationship or a relationship that is so based on greed. No, it's not a physical greed that the people are ordered to do and observe here, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran to the men and to the women, but mainly to the men, وَعَاشِرُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, live with them with goodness. This is the relationship that's one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He said in Surah Al-Rum, مِنْ آيَاتِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. That it's from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He created for you azwaj, your mates, the wives, and the same thing, the wife, the husband. For what reason? And He made mercy between you, and made you love one another and have this feel of mercy towards one another and the love and so on. So this is by the mercy of Allah, and that's what the relationships are strong with. Not that this is my right versus your right. No, what is a higher level than this is the goodness that they have between one another, and that's why they forgive one another and they treat each other with kindness. They need to know their rights, of course. And why? Just in case they go in front of a judge, or when relationship reach a level where they need to do something, whether to terminate the relationship or to fix problems and so on. But the foundation of the relationship between a husband and wife is based on mercy and love and kindness and forgiving one another and so on and so forth. So these are some of the rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the believers to observe, and for the society to protect the rights of those who are weak in the society, and to fulfill these rights to them, and not to deal with them with injustice and with abuse and with deceiving them and so on and so forth. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us observe these rulings, and the benefit of this is that we witness the perfection of the rulings of the Deen of Islam, and also a warning for us that we deal with these types of situations, or if we are faced by something like that, with justice and the rulings of the Deen of Islam, and to be warned when it comes to the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We continue inshallah ta'ala with more rulings and more verses of Surah An-Nisa, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us life next time. So till then, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who learn and practice, and to be steadfast on the Deen of Islam. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.
أفلا يتدبرون القرآن ولو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا.